Have you ever caught yourself watching a dramatic scene in a movie or hearing about a friend going through something intense and feeling nothing? Not even a flicker of emotion? Maybe you shrug it off, maybe you smile politely, but deep down you notice this quiet distance between yourself and what everyone else seems to feel so strongly. Or maybe it's subtler. You're in conversations or relationships, and while people around you are swept up in their highs and lows, you notice a kind of calm or maybe a numbness that seems unshakable. If any of this sounds familiar, you might be wondering, am I emotionally detached? And I want you to know that's a question worth exploring. Most people hear emotionally detached and immediately think cold, uncaring, or even broken. But the truth is far more nuanced and way more interesting. Emotional detachment isn't always a flaw. Sometimes it's a survival mechanism, a learned strategy, or even a hidden strength that's been shaped by your experiences, your brain, and your life circumstances. Today, let's unpack what it really means to be emotionally detached, why it happens, and how understanding it can transform the way you see yourself and your relationships. Think about this for a moment. In childhood, your brain is like wet clay, constantly absorbing signals from your environment. If you grew up in a household where emotions were unpredictable, maybe parents argued loudly, maybe love came in fits and starts, maybe expressing feelings felt unsafe, your brain had to learn how to protect itself. One way it does this is by creating a buffer, a kind of emotional distance. Not because you don't care, but because your mind learned that feeling too much was dangerous or overwhelming. In psychology, we often call this a form of emotional regulation gone adaptive. It's your internal system saying, I'll keep myself safe by not letting these intense feelings sweep me away. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Emotional detachment isn't just a childhood thing. Even in adulthood, life experiences can reinforce it. If you've been through repeated heartbreak, betrayal, or environments where vulnerability was met with criticism, your brain might quietly build walls. And here's the tricky part. Those walls aren't always visible to you. Sometimes you think, I just don't get emotional easily, or I'm just more rational than most people. But underneath, your brain is constantly monitoring risks, keeping you at a comfortable distance from emotional chaos. And that's not a defect, that's self-preservation. But how do you know if what you're experiencing is detachment rather than, say, a healthy ability to remain calm? That's where it gets interesting. Emotional detachment shows up in patterns. You might notice yourself observing life more than participating in it. You may find it hard to share your feelings or even to identify them. Relationships might feel shallow or complicated because while you care about people, there's an invisible barrier that keeps your heart just out of reach. And here's a fascinating twist. Research in affective neuroscience suggests that people who are emotionally detached often have highly developed prefrontal cortex activity, the part of the brain involved in planning, decision-making, and regulating emotional responses. In other words, your mind is extremely good at analyzing situations, sometimes at the cost of feeling them fully in the moment. Let's pause and consider an everyday example. Imagine you're scrolling through social media and you see a post about a tragic event, a story that makes everyone else react with anger, sadness, or outrage. You read it, maybe feel a tiny ripple of concern, but it doesn't move you like it moves others. Does that make you heartless? Not at all. It might mean your brain has learned to create an emotional buffer, a way to process events without being overwhelmed. You can engage intellectually and make decisions, but your emotional system is dialed down, calibrated for survival or stability. This is why emotionally detached people often excel in high-pressure careers, crisis situations, or problem-solving roles. They can think clearly without being swept away by feelings. Now, here's where things get even more layered. Emotional detachment isn't just about protection or observation. It can also be a reflection of curiosity and independence. When you're slightly detached, you notice things that others overlook. You can see dynamics, patterns, and behaviors without bias. You might find yourself offering advice to friends, noticing social cues, or understanding conflict in a way that people fully immersed in emotions can't. This isn't a cold analytical skill. It's a form of heightened awareness. Your detachment, when recognized and channeled, can be a superpower, especially if you learn to balance it with empathy. But let's be honest, detachment has a flip side. It can make intimacy complicated. Relationships may feel distant even when you care deeply. You might struggle to express emotions in ways that your partner or friends recognize as authentic. And the truth is, ignoring or suppressing emotions entirely isn't sustainable. Emotional detachment becomes a challenge when it limits connection, when it stops you from experiencing the richness of life, when it becomes a shield that keeps joy, love, and vulnerability at bay. So, understanding your detachment isn't about labeling yourself broken or cold. It's about noticing the pattern, observing how it serves you, and making choices about when to soften the walls. Here's a metaphor I like. Think of your emotional detachment like a safety harness on a rock climbing trip. The harness keeps you secure while you navigate difficult terrain. It prevents you from falling too hard or being overwhelmed. But you wouldn't climb forever attached to the harness without also practicing trust in your own grip, your strength, and the ropes. Emotional detachment works similarly. It's a protective tool. The goal isn't to throw it away entirely, but to learn when to loosen the straps, when to engage, and when to allow yourself to feel fully. You might be wondering, okay, so how do I know if I'm too detached? A good starting point is self-reflection. Ask yourself, do I struggle to feel joy or sadness in situations that move others? Do I keep people at a safe distance emotionally? Do I intellectually understand my emotions but rarely experience them fully? And perhaps most importantly, when I try to connect, do I feel blocked or uncomfortable? These questions aren't meant to shame you, they're a guide for understanding your mind. Another key insight comes from attachment theory, which explores how early relationships shape emotional patterns. People with avoidant attachment styles often display emotional detachment as a core feature. Avoidant attachment isn't a character flaw, it's a survival strategy, an adaptive response to relationships that once felt inconsistent or unsafe. Recognizing this doesn't excuse toxic behavior, of course, but it does offer context. Your patterns are often learned responses, not innate failings. Now, here's the hopeful part. Emotional detachment isn't permanent unless you want it to be. Like any pattern of thought or behavior, it can be reshaped with awareness, curiosity, and practice. Mindfulness, journaling, or therapy can help you notice your emotions, identify where detachment arises, and experiment with feeling safely. Sometimes small, intentional acts, like sharing a vulnerability with a trusted friend, allowing yourself to cry during a movie, or even reflecting on gratitude, can help the emotional muscles you've been keeping on reserve to flex and grow. And let's not forget compassion for yourself. Many emotionally detached people carry quiet guilt or shame because they don't feel enough according to societal expectations. But here's the reframing. Your detachment is part of your unique wiring. It's your brain's clever way of protecting, analyzing, and navigating the world. The goal isn't to eradicate it. The goal is to recognize it, understand it, and use it in service of a richer, fuller life. Think about the last time you truly noticed your own emotions, not just intellectually, but physically, emotionally, internally. Did you pause to breathe, to recognize subtle sensations, to acknowledge thoughts without judgment? That practice, simple as it sounds, is revolutionary for someone who is naturally detached. It's not about forcing yourself to feel extremes. It's about noticing what's there, allowing it space, and sometimes letting it move through you. Ultimately, emotional detachment is a spectrum. Some people fluctuate naturally along it, others inhabit it consistently. And here's a final insight. Detachment doesn't make you less human. In fact, it can make you deeply human in a reflective, observant, and intelligent way. Your brain has evolved strategies to keep you safe, aware, and capable. The challenge and the opportunity is to pair that intelligence with connection, to allow yourself to be present while maintaining the strengths that come from calm, observation, and resilience. So, if you've watched this and felt a quiet resonance, if you recognized patterns in yourself without judgment, take a moment to acknowledge it. You're not cold, you're not broken, and you're certainly not alone. Understanding your emotional detachment can become a gateway to self-awareness, empathy, and intentional living. The first step is noticing it. The next step is choosing how you want to engage with life, relationships, and yourself. And here's a little experiment. Today, try noticing your emotions in one small moment. Maybe it's savoring a cup of coffee, watching a sunset, or reflecting on a memory that stirs something subtle. Pay attention without analysis, without judgment. Just notice. That's the practice of connecting from a place of detachment. Over time, those small moments add up, and the balance between observation and feeling becomes more natural. You might also consider reaching out, commenting, sharing, or reflecting with others who resonate with this topic.